It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas everywhere you go.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Ho Ho Oh, our Project Potter holiday special, guys. We are doing 25 straight nights for Christmas movie reviews. Guys, we're in the home stretch here. We're on night 17 of 25. We're reviewing Daddy's Home 2, specifically because this one is Christmas themed. The first one is still a great movie, but this one centers around Christmas time. And I've seen these movies before, but only one time. But this is a good time, guys. My name is Kyle, your host. Thanks for checking out Project Potter, guys. Go check out the other content on the channel, including the other 16 reviews that we've done night after night here, guys. If you haven't seen this series before, what I do is go through my favorite scenes in the movie, a favorite character, a least favorite character, a score to 10, and then we stack this up against the Ho Ho Oh rankings, guys, which is going to be now 17 movies deep. Let's go. What a movie, dude. What a fun movie. This is an amazing cast. First of all, we got Will Ferrell, we got Mark Wahlberg, we got John Lithgow, we got Mel Gibson, and then we got Linda Calderini. And every time I see a movie with Linda Calderini, dude, I fall in love with her all over again. She's amazing. An amazing cast, and the chemistry is great, and the writing is great, and this is such a good time, dude. So I'm gonna try and list off some of my favorite scenes. There's so many of them. At the beginning where they're getting together and they're going and loading up the cars, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, this isn't gonna fit." Mark Wahlberg just whips it into the bushes, and he's like, "Oh, I had to go wheels in first, and we're good to go." And then that comes around at the end again, guys. But I like how Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell are like co-parenting, co-daddying, and they're like, "We got this thing figured out." And he's like, "Fist bump." He's like, "You getting snacks? I thought I was getting snacks." And he's like, "I just saw Transformer." Their chemistry is just so good together, guys. And it's like I forget that I haven't seen them together really outside of Daddy's Home 1 since like The Other Guys, which is an incredible movie. And so we don't get a lot of Wahlberg and Ferrell together, but it's so good. I want them to be in every comedy now. This is such a fun movie. They cut down the Christmas tree, which ends up being a service tower, and Will Ferrell's character like dies for a few minutes, and he's like, "Oh, you gonna bring him back again?" He's like, "Oh, let El Padre take care of this," and he's like, "Oh, did I die again?" He's like, "Yeah, he died again." The whole bowling scene, guys, when this kid is bowling zeros and zeros. He's like, "You gonna have those wussy rails up there?" And he's like, "Are you gonna be a man and bowl?" And he's like, "Okay." And then they're like, "This kid's bowling a perfect zero," and they're like making fun of the kid. And there's this guy like taking bets in the back, and they're like, "Does this kid understand the rules? It looks like he's aiming for the gutter." And it's just really funny. And Will Ferrell's like, he needs more height on the ball. And yeah, he gets the one pin at the end there, guys. And then they celebrate, and he's like, "You're a winner, and you're a winner, and you're a winner." The scene where Will Ferrell's dad, where Lithgow goes out and they're looking for the tree, and they're like, "Where's my dad?" And then they go out, and he's like, "Oh, he's face down, and there's like a bunch of gray wolves around there." And he's like, "They're very dangerous." And he's like, "They look pretty friendly." And he's like, "Don't make eye contact with the alpha male." And he's like, "It's too late. I've already done that." That's so funny. The scene where he's got the snowblower, obviously, and he's going through and he gets caught on the lights, and then he's like, "This was a terrible idea." He's like, "Why did we string all the lights together?" And it shoots out, and they're like, "Let go, let go." And he's going up, and he's like, "I can't. I don't want to hit your car." Oh, so good, dude. The time when they talk about how the song comes on and it ruined it for Mark Wahlberg, and he's like, "Well, yeah, I was gonna nail the part." And he's like, "I'm sitting there, and then my dad's out there, and he's giving a foot job to fucking what's her name, the mom or whatever." And then he goes out the back, and he's like, "Oh, it gets make fun of me, Dad." He's like, "I don't like Christmas anymore." It's so funny, dude. And I just love the dynamic between the kids. The kids were all cute, and there's this whole thing where like they got to give Mark Wahlberg's kid the birds and the bees talk, and he's like, "Okay, the nitty gritty or whatever." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "The guys have ding dong or whatever," and he's like, "And girls got a woohoo," and he's like, "I already know about that. It's gross." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "What you're gonna do?" He's like, "You're gonna listen to her problems," and he's like, "You're gonna be there and talk about all. She's gonna talk about all the other guys that she's dated, but you're gonna be in the friend zone." He's like, "That's where we thrive." He's like, "We go spend a lot of time there." He's like, "Are we gonna lose? Yeah, we're gonna lose a lot," but he's like, "That's where we make our money." And it's just funny because Mark Wahlberg comes in, and Mel Gibson's like laughing the whole time, and he's like making fun of him. And it's so funny even at the beginning, guys, when the dads come in, and just the difference in the airport when he comes in, and he's like thunderstruck or whatever, and it's like "Da-na-na-na-na-na-na," and then he's like, "Oh, he's so cool." He's like, "Why does he look so cool?" And like women passing by are like checking him out, and he's like winking at him and stuff, and then he like gives him a pat on the back, and he's like, "Okay, take the bags around." And Will Ferrell's like, "Yes, sir. Oh, I'm not your driver." And it's so funny. And then then Will Ferrell's dad comes over, and their relationship is so polar opposite, where he's like, "Dad, Dad." He's like, "Come here." And then they kiss on the mouth, and they're like, "Oh." And then at the end, guys, obviously, Mel Gibson goes in and kisses Mark Wahlberg, and everyone's surprised. And he's like, "You know what? We missed the boat on that one." He's like, "We had to start young, and we didn't get it." So It's just great. Their dynamic is great, and I love how there's like the thing between Linda Calderini's character and then Karen, who's like the supermodel. Like we think she's like stuck up and all that stuff, and she's like making notes, and she's like, "Are you making notes about me?" And at the end, she like tells them, "We're like, oh, Sarah, the best mom you could ever be," and she's like, she's making a character about me, and she's like crying, and the whole scene where at the end where John Cena shows up, of course, because John Cena just shows up and like everything, and he is like the real dad, and then there's the scene at the end where the kid is like going to kiss Megan, and they're like, he's going, and she's like, "Where's your phone?" And then he goes and he kisses his stepsister, and they're like, "No," and he's like, "I did it," and then that kid ends up getting a kissing booth at the end. So like that kid made out like a bandit, let me tell you. I'm sure there's more guys. There's just so many funny jokes in there. The whole nativity scene where he's like, they're getting a snowball fight after, and Will Ferrell's like faking it, and he's like, "Are you gonna keep pump faking that, or are you gonna throw it to me?" He's like, "Will, don't worry." He's like, I played the Red Sox AAA phone system. He's like, "I'm just letting you know right now. I got something throwing. Don't tell me right now." Like he's like pump faking it, and then John Cena is like never played sports literally ever. I was like dying at that, dude. So this is so much fun, this movie, and again, I'm sure there's things I forgot, but there's just so many fun antics. And I mean, they put up that huge 25-foot tree, and they're like, "It's $20,000," and she's like, "Don't tell me that we just spent $25,000 on that tree." And they're like, "The 4G is already out of network." He's like, "That's actually a cheap bargain that you're getting, but because they cut down a tree." And he's like, "Oh," Mel Gibson's character is originally like, "Hey man, like, we're not going to get a tree here." He's like, "These are all fake." He's like, "We're going to cut down our own tree." And, "Dad, you can't just cut down a tree. What are you talking about?" He's like, "What? Those are our trees. I'm the public." And then he's like, "Okay." And he like is getting pressured to him. And then Will Ferrell comes over and he's like, "I don't think you can cut down a public tree." And he's like, "Oh no, you definitely cannot." He's like, "That's a felony." And he's like, "I tried to talk him out of it, but he's like, you know how they are." And it's just really, really funny, dude. And I just love like the whole thermostat scene where she's like, she touches the thermostat and they're like, "It's roasting in here." They're like, "Did you touch the thermostat?" And then Mark Wahlberg's like, "I didn't touch the thermostat. Did you touch the thermostat? I didn't touch the thermostat." And they find out it's like the girl, and they're like, "Oh, I can touch it whenever I'm at dad's or whatever." And they're like, "You let her touch the thermostat?" And Will Ferrell's like, "This thermostat is a sacred man thing." He's like, "They can never touch the thermostat." And they keep adjusting it. And there's just back and forth. There's just so many fun scenes. And it's just great. And the antics are great, dude. And it's so good. I really, really had a great time with this movie, and this movie is hilarious. And they go to like the improv at the end, and then and they're like, "Oh, you're divorced," and they like that's how he finds out. And Will Ferrell's like, he's like, "No, I don't want to be part of this bit anymore." And they're like, "Ah," he's like, "That's my dad," and everyone's like laughing, and he's like, "Stop including me in this bit. I don't want to be in this bit." Beginning scene where Pop Pop tells a joke, and he's like, "Why does a duck cover its feathers or whatever?" He's like, "To cover its butt quack." And I thought that was a pretty funny joke. And then they're like, "Okay, it's time for your turn." And Mel Gibson goes, "Two dead hookers show up at the bar." And they're like, "Whoa, whoa, no more dead hooker jokes." The cast is so great. And yeah, the writing is great, and the antics and everything are great. And I just had a blast with this movie. I'm sure there's scenes I'm forgetting, guys, but off the top of my head, it's a good time. Okay, guys, my favorite character for this one, it's a great cast, like I said, but it's got to be Will Ferrell's character. I mean, he is so funny, dude. This is like peak Will Ferrell, and maybe this is just because I've already seen a Will Ferrell movie that may or may not be number one out of 10 out of 10 with Spirited. This is like classic Will Ferrell, and his timing is really good, and his physical comedy is great, and he's like when he's like using the snowblower, and he's like, "I don't want to let it hit your car." He's like, "I don't want to let go," and just when he's like jumping up and down for his dad and stuff, it's so good, and just his comedic timing and just he's like talking about like the friend zone. He's like, "We're gonna get a lot of losses. We're gonna be losing a lot," but he's like, "That's where we thrive in there." And, there's so many funny things. But I thought he was great. The whole cast was so good, and he really plays off of them so well, especially Mark Wahlberg. But I just thought Will Ferrell was the best part, and I could have picked like probably 3 or 4 different characters for this role, but Will Ferrell is my best character for this one. Okay, guys, my least favorite character for this one, it might not even really be fair because he's not in a lot of it, but it's got to be John Cena's character. And it's not because I have anything against John Cena. I loved Peacemaker. I love John Cena in a comedic role, but it's like they didn't really know what to do with John Cena here, where they like every role, all the roles that John Cena's in, and this is like how he was in Fast too. He comes in and he's way too serious, and it's like just let John Cena be funny, dude. Like look at Peacemaker. Peacemaker was so good, and it's like they just let him unleash John Cena, and they didn't let him be the serious character, even though he still had some really emotional, serious moments. But like they didn't quite know, and this was obviously before Peacemaker came out, but like they didn't quite know how to handle John Cena. So he comes in and he's like that quiet, tough guy, and he's like, "I don't want anything to do with this, blah blah blah." But then he has that funny line at the end where he's like, I was an outcast or whatever for season 3 of Ice Road Truckers," and Will Ferrell's like, "That's their best season." Like he's like, that's not gonna lie. It's my least favorite character, and in a cast that's so strong, I didn't even dislike it. I like how he comes in at the end and he's like, "It's my favorite song in the world." And he's not a hateable character, but if I had to pick a worst character, which I do for this series, and I've had too many of these where I say no one because everyone's great, it's John Cena for this one. Okay, guys, that brings us to the score. This is a 9.6, dude. This is a 9.6. And you might be thinking, Kyle, that's quite a high score. Guys, this movie earns it, man. I mean, it's so good. I mean, I just named off like a lot of the funny scenes, and it's just like when you just hear those out loud and just talking them, like it's so funny and it's acted so well. And it doesn't really wear its welcome too thin or anything like that. And it's the cast that really sells this movie, where it's like it's so fun to see Mark Wahlberg and Mel Gibson and Will Ferrell, even John Cena a little bit at the end, and John Lithgow. They just play so well, and I just love how it's like Mark Wahlberg and Mel Gibson on this side, and they're like the tough guys, like old school, like quiet type. And then you have Will Ferrell and John Lithgow, who are like a match made in heaven, where it's like they're both so goofy. And it's like John Lithgow, it's funny that he like played like a serious role on Dexter. It's like menacing figure, spoilers for Dexter, because he's so funny in this role. And I feel like he's like comedic in a lot of the roles. And it just reminds me like how great of an actor he is, but like how this whole cast is great, and how Linda Calderini is perfect. And she's like, the whole like the daughter's like rolling her shirt up like because the other girl's doing it, and she's like, no, dress like a nice girl. And Linda Calderini has a hilarious line I didn't mention earlier, guys, when they're going to like a school function, and she's like, oh, leather pants and side boobs. She's like, she's really getting really sexy for this school function, very appropriate. And it's just funny because she's like giving her judgmental looks, and she's like, "Oh, a little shoplifting is fun." And Calderini's like, "It is exciting," but she's like, "How dare you?" Security officer's like, "Is she bothering you, ma'am?" And she's like, "Ah." I couldn't believe it, but yeah, man, this cast is so great, and I love watching them together. And I don't mean to sound like a broken record, guys, but it's just so funny. They're playing like the games in the car where it's like Will Ferrell in the front seat and Linda Calderini's driving and Mel Gibson's in the back, and then John Lithgow is like, so like he's like, oh, let's play yes and or whatever the game is called, and then they're like just constantly like singing songs and stuff, and then at the end he's like, let's play the quiet game, and then they're like Mel Gibson and Linda Calderini are like, is this really happening right now? And then they play for like 2 seconds. He's like, I can't do it, and it's so funny, and I just love the contrasting styles, but how they realize that they kind of balance each other out, where it's like you can't be a hard ass like Mark Wahlberg and Mel Gibson's character 100%, and you can't be super sensitive like Will Ferrell, because you need a little bit of both. That's what makes their parenting so good, is that they have the best of both worlds. And so it's like a fun story at the end, and it's just a heartwarming thing. And like I love how they get snowed in at Showcase Cinemas at the end because there's nowhere to go, so they go watch a movie, and he's like, oh, everything's sold out except for this one movie, Mistletoe. And they're like, what's that? And they're like, oh, it's a movie about Liam Neeson who like negotiates with terrorists and then has to save children. And like the cutout is just like him holding a baby. And they're like, oh, okay, we can see that. And they're like, it's PG-13 now. And they're like, I don't like potty words, or like whatever Lithgow says. And they take the kids to that's the only movie, and they have nothing else to do, and they're snowed in. And it's so funny because they like get stuck in the front row, and I love that movie shot. And then they're all looking up their necks, and the kids are all loving it and stuff. And he's like, you sons of a bitches, I will find you and I will kill you. And it's just funny because it's like not age appropriate. And then the movie cuts out, and then I've never been to Showcase Cinemas, guys. I know it's nice, but like they had like a full on, and it was Christmas Day, so I get it, but they had like a full on like quartet singing songs and stuff with like drums and everything. And they're like Will Ferrell's character, and they're like, hey, it's not a microphone, it's a mallet. See? And it's just really funny, dude. And it was just constant laughs and constant fun. And I had such a great time with this movie. I can't stress that enough. And that's why I'm giving it the score that I'm giving it. And highly recommend this, guys. Go watch it. Great, great holiday movie. Okay, guys, that brings us to the Ho Ho Oh rankings. Guys, recapping it here. At number 1, we still have Spirited, the other Will Ferrell 10 out of 10 here, guys. Number 2, we have Home Alone at a 9.9. Number 3, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer at a 9.8. Number 4, Bad Santa at 9.7. And this one slides in at the new number 5, guys. Very high up on the list, Daddy's Home 2. Number 6, guys, is going to be The Night Before at an 8.6. Number 7, Jingle All the Way at an 8.4 with Turbo Man. Number 8, guys, Just Friends at an 8.3. Number 9, How the Grinch Stole Christmas at an 8.2. Number 10, A Muppet Christmas Carol at 7.4. Number 11, Klaus, 7.1. Number 12, Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special at 6.6. Number 13, Deck the Halls at a 6.5. Number 14, The Polar Express at a 6.1. Number 15, Charlie Brown Christmas at a 5.7. Number 16, Christmas with the Cranks at a 5.3. That's what number 17 is, guys. A Christmas Story at a 2.5. And that is how our rankings shape out through 17 nights. All right, guys, that's another episode of Ho Ho Oh. Thanks for checking out the channel. Thanks for checking out Project Potter, guys. Hope you enjoyed this. Agree, disagree, let me know what you think about Daddy's Home. I think it's excellent. Sorry, Daddy's Home 2. I think it's excellent. I think it's great. I think it's a hilarious movie. I think it's really well made, and I think it's heartwarming. So let me know what you guys think, if you guys agree or disagree. As I just said, thanks for checking out the channel. Like, comment, subscribe, and until tomorrow night, guys, peace.